such short notice and there's a lot of businesses that weren't able to come on, it will be available for them on the county website to be able to review at their time. So we will get started shortly.
And Joe, just so you know, we have a email list of all restaurant owners that we can send that link out to.
Perfect, that would be great. Thank you.
I'm actually doing that right now.
So good morning, all. I managed to find myself into an empty office, and Chris Casto had expressed some concerns about hearing us with masks on, so we've all split up into different rooms. And Joe, you're good? All right, and Kim, you're okay? All righty. Well, let's go ahead get going then. Kim, did you want to kick it off? You want me to?
You go on ahead.
All right. So good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on short notice. We wanted to do a quick go-to meeting to update people on some things that we talked about at the board meeting on Tuesday. Specifically, I was going to talk about some funding that's available to businesses through our various funding streams. And then Kim was going to talk about the guidances and how they apply to restaurant operations and to bars. But I did want to kick off things by just reminding folks that it's a busy weekend coming up, or at least we hope it's a busy weekend coming up, and we want to be as safe as possible as we can. We want to be safe for both our staff and for our guests. And the best way to do that is adhere to the guidance as Kim will go over later. The one concern I truly have is that looking back in July, we had a spike of cases after the 4th of July weekend. And a lot of that was associated with community transmission. That is, we could not figure out from where it came from. So that's commingling of visitors and guests to our area with our local residents. And so that's my largest concern going forward into the Labor Day weekend. Because we're kind of in that same situation, the same restrictions or openings, if you will, that we had around the 4th of July weekends are the same one we're looking at going into the Labor Day weekend. That is, you can have indoor dining at a reduced number. Bars are open, again, outdoor operations only unless they're serving food. Kim will go into details of that, but we're sort of setting ourselves up for the same situation that we had 1 to 2 weeks after the 4th of July weekend. So I want people to be aware of that. And as I've said before, be really brilliant on those basics that we know reduce disease transmission. That is staying home if you're sick, and analogously for business owners, screening your employees and making sure that they stay home if they have COVID-like symptoms. Good hand hygiene at all times. If you feel like you ought to be washing your hands, again, probably that's a good idea. Wearing a facial covering, and if you can't wear a face mask, we do have both face masks and face shields available for distribution. Joe or Kim may go into detail on that. Maintaining social distance where possible, and we know that's not always possible. And so when you can't do that, wear a facial covering or a face shield. And then, kind of what I encourage people to do, and Joe captured this well, is know what the normal you is. And if there's anything that is off in you, that may be the earliest sign of COVID. And so limiting your contact with other people after that point in time is a good thing. So I just wanted to, again, set the stage with that. I'm going to hand it over to Joe and to Kim.
Thanks, Eric. So today, what I wanted to talk to you about is Tuesday afternoon, both Eric and I were at the Board of Soups meeting. And actually, let me start with introduction. My name is Joe Lynch. I'm the Division Director of Health and Human Services Agency for Mariposa County. And part of what I do is the finances, HR, et cetera, but most of it's finances. And so at Tuesday's meeting at the board, listened to, I think it was Jim and other owners of businesses discuss the economic impact that the COVID and closures has had on their businesses. So going back with my team and going through some grants that have already been awarded or could be awarded, we wanted to go through to try and determine what the initial, we'll call it the initial damage estimate. For those of you that were here for Detweiler or Ferguson or any of our natural disasters, well, one of the first things you do is you determine what is the actual loss. It's called the initial damage estimate. And Eric and I talked, and really this pandemic should be treated like a disaster. So there's two facets of expenses that have come out from the pandemic and the closures from the state guidelines. The first is the initial expenses that were necessary to meet the guidelines. So that was barriers that were put in place, tents that were bought for outside dining, masks and cleaning supplies, and all of those are an actual, we'll call them an actual outlay of funding expense. On that side, we have funding available to take care of as much of that as possible. So what I've been asking, and I'll put my email address up on the screen, and we'll send it out. But what I've been asking businesses to do is, if you had COVID-related expenses around tents or partitions or things of that nature, to give me almost just a quick invoice. I don't need receipts at this point, just a quick invoice that said, I spent $5,000 on getting my business prepared. We should be able to go through quite a few of those. We have the money set aside for that, and start paying for those for the businesses to the most we can till it's gone. And if you have additional requirements, like I need masks for my crew, I know Tuesday at the meeting I heard Pony Espresso said she had just bought masks. We were able to take 3 cases of masks to her business the very next day. We have them. We have PPE supplies. In the initial go-to meetings, we said, come to us, we have supplies. And I think that was just so long ago that people had started to take care of their own business. Please continue to come to us. We will help where we can. Hand washing stations, I think we've got one put out at the airport which was requested from us on Tuesday's meeting. Okay, with that being said, you see my email address. If you have expenses, put them together in an invoice. You can email them to me directly. One of my team will get back to you as soon as possible. Now, on the second part of this, we don't have funding available, but we are actively pursuing funding. And there are several streams to pursue that are not business loans. And I know Tara's done a fantastic job of getting funding that was like micro loans for businesses. These would be grants that would be separate from loans. But what we would need to know is, for the period of time that we were closed, what losses did you incur? Now, you don't need to go through a bunch of detail, just like the invoice on the first is just saying, I lost $5,000 in sales or $10,000 in sales, and I had to pay X amount of dollars for insurance or whatever the case may be. What we're attempting to do is determine what is the loss that occurred that wasn't able to be claimed on insurance, that came straight out of your pocket, was a loss of revenue. Yes, and Tara said those forgivable loans do not have to be paid back. They're just from 2 different sources. That's why the 2 funding sources aren't going to be blended together. We are looking for a significant amount of funding to assist businesses, but it will take some work in saying, here's what I lost. Now, I don't know if all of it will be recoverable. What we're looking at right now is some. And so we heard you loud and clear on Tuesday. My team over at Health and Human Services, and we met with the county this morning, has been working pretty much nonstop to find the funding so that we make sure that we can not only pay for the supply and equipment that you've already purchased, put in place a way to give you PPE or equipment that you need currently, and we are seeking to alleviate the losses, or at least have some kind of reduction in losses that you faced due to being closed. We'll probably go to the board. I'll say it'll be Dallin and Luis. We'll go to the board in the next week or two with the plan to help alleviate the losses that the business faced. There'll be enough notice, you'll know, you can come and listen to the presentation, but on the front end, you can start sending me invoices now about supplies that you spent to meet the guidelines. That's Jay Lynch at Mariposa HSC. Send me those invoices now. My team will reach out to you and let you know which ones are allowable expenses, and we'll start mailing checks out to cover your costs. So we wanted to make sure that we moved as fast as possible from Tuesday. And then I'll answer any questions now before we go to Kim, but are there any questions that I can answer from the participants on today? And if you want to type them in the chat box, you can. I'll read them, and I'll read the question out and answer it.
Hi, it's Chris. So the losses could be PG&E that we had to expense to keep the rooms cold, even though we couldn't be in there, or keep the temperature doable. And rent would be a big one. We can use rent. That would be huge. You're having to pay all this rent and not being able to have the store open.
Yeah, and if you want to send me the PG&E separate anyway, we are in line for some energy funding, CARES energy funding, and I will be able to see what's allowable on that. We haven't received it yet, but different from what I think Tara talked about on Tuesday, most of the funding that we're receiving, we'll call it under the CARES bucket. We received some CARES bucket for scientific stuff like lab results, for community stuff. Most of it's retroactive. So if you send me, if you want to carve out the PG&E alone, I can see if it's applicable to that other CARES energy, and we may be able to do that even separate from going to the board with this other stuff. There's different pots of funds. The toughest part for us is assigning what goes into each, and making sure we maximize it so everyone gets as much as possible. But yes, PG&E, rent, loss of business, spoilage of food, things that you had to throw away, all that loss is what we're talking about. It's not a guarantee that we'll cover it all, but we're looking for money to help in any way we can, whether it's a portion of it. There'll be more in the next couple of weeks, but if you could just start, and I don't want you to spend 100 hours putting to the detail, but just start getting a bucket where you say it's about 20 grand or 30 grand or 10 grand or whatever, so that we get a perspective of how much loss we have.
And so we could use the telephone bill, because obviously we weren't there to answer the phone, and
Correct.
all those. Yeah. So I had another question we were talking about. If you own, is this is related to all businesses, for example, across the board, or are you just specifically for the restaurants and the retail?
So
Only thing I was asking is, we have a bed and breakfast, and we lost months of not being able to do that, and then now our cleaning supplies, we have to wash everything. It's
Yeah,
huge. I mean, not huge. It's more than it's ever been. Just in eight loads of laundry every time somebody leaves. So
yeah,
are those considered? And did you want those separate, different businesses separated?
So to answer that, number one is I have 6 daughters at home, so I know what 8 loads of laundry a day is. I got you covered on that. It's expensive. I'm with you. But really, the funding that we're looking at right now clearly states that it's for businesses that had to close, and so it's a broad spectrum at this point. We're still trying to get more detail on that. So we originally thought, well, restaurants, bars, nail salons, things that had to close shop. And I think, I'm not sure if lodging fits into that, because lodging was kind of always had the availability to be open. I will get you more detail, Chris. I'm not sure at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think.
Joe, can I add? I just wanted to add on the funding that I'll be bringing in. I think it can work with what you just mentioned, is that it won't be retroactive, and it will be available for all businesses that have brick and mortar. So it's brick and mortar, but whether they've closed or not. So this will be for businesses that had to stay open, but they had to get PPE or other COVID-related items and spend out of pocket on that. And my funds will be forward-going. So what I'm thinking is we're going to have this covered. We'll have the retroactive funds that you have to reimburse the businesses, and then I'll have the funds to reimburse businesses going forward. So as businesses continue to have expenses, they can come to me to be reimbursed.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Jim, right?
These are potential grants, correct?
There's existing and potential. So on some existing grants, what we're doing, these are actual grants that have been awarded to the county already. We're attempting to see if we can use that funding for what we're talking about today. That's where we're at right now.
Would that include, I'm sorry.
Secondarily,
Oh, go ahead.
So secondarily, with this initial damage estimate of trying to determine what the loss is, then it would be future grants that we would go and say, hey, here's our loss. One of the components of the next legislative action that's coming out is really a backfill to local lost revenue. And so that's the possible passing through the Congress. There is funding already available that we're determining whether or not it's eligible or not, and that's the stage we're at. And if it is eligible, then we will work to make a carve out so that we can address these losses. Now, Jim, go back to your second part of your question.
Yeah, I guess it's a two-part question. I'm wondering also, in addition to things that were mentioned with regard to rent, MPUD, PG&E, and so forth, would insurances be covered? Obviously, workers' compensation insurance, there were no workers. And general liability insurance. Sure, the building could still burn down while we're not in business, but it's still an expense with no income. So I'm curious about insurances, and I guess if I heard you right, you're looking for us to forward you just a synopsis of the expenses that were lost. In other words, the overhead that represent losses, as opposed to excruciating detail like invoices. You just want to have an idea at this point?
Correct. So we'll take it in a two-stage thing. I call it on a cocktail napkin, write down, hey, it was $2,000 for PG&E and X amount for rent, X amount for insurance. But where it's a ballpark. It's not a official number where you're going to stamp your name on it and say, I'm going to put this to the IRS. It's just saying, here's the general ballpark. As we move forward and we create a process that says, hey, if we have the ability to use these funds, gain additional funds, we will say, here's the exact process. We'll give you the template, put it in this so that it's consistent. And at that point, your work will turn into actual compensation. I don't want you to do a lot of work up front outside of just saying, I know that my rent's X amount of thousands per month. It was 3 months, just a cocktail napkin. And if you, honestly, as a business, if you just want to give me I lost $30,000, and just a quick breakdown, and then say the questions, does this cover insurance? Does it cover, then I'll continue to go and find those things. Now, having never run a restaurant, I think Kim actually has run restaurants. I have not run restaurants, so I'm not sure what are some of the components. So if you want to list those on there, I'll continue to ask and see if they're viable.
And you're going to provide your email address for us to send this to?
Yeah, I did already in the chat box. So it's J Lynch. I'll do it again. And if you hear a response, if you hear from Mariposa HSC, it might be someone on my team. So if you don't hear directly from me, that doesn't mean I'm not involved. It just means I'm busy, overwhelmed with all this stuff. So it's jlynch@mariposahsc.org.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and being first doesn't win. So it's, we're gonna it'll probably be the next couple weeks that we're working on this, getting it to the board, etc. So you don't need to send it today, but if you just have time over the next week or two or week to send me a quick note, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
And to go back where Joe started is we're looking at, we had this idea that post Detweiler, we set up a local assistance center where we brought all of the people with for want of a better term, right answers, whether there's a Small Business Administration, FEMA, et cetera, all the potential sources of funding or relief, both state and federal. And we're going to start building that out for here, be more like a virtual local assistance center. But we realized on Tuesday that there are sources of funding that we're not tapping into, that we need to be more deliberate about, and we have to have a mechanism to share with the community as well. And so the LAC is the way we would do it for a fire or an earthquake or a flood. And even though the pandemic's a different kind of disaster, that using that same mechanism will allow us to get better connection with the community.
So I would say that's my update. So again, I'll summarize. Any expense that you spent to meet the guidelines from the state, you could send to my email address in an invoice form, and we will let you know what is allowable and not. And then we will compensate. There's some paperwork that should be done, like I-9s, things of that nature. My team will be in contact with you. And then secondarily, so we can work on expenses you've already spent to meet guidelines now. Secondarily, we can help you with any PPE, hand washing stations, any of those things that keep your business running safely currently. And if you start putting together kind of what that damage or loss of business estimate is in short form, it would be great to send it to me, and we will have more information in the future. And I will just tell you, I'm going to shift it over to Kim if you have questions about the guidelines. I think people know most of them, but I appreciated your message coming forward of the struggles. Please continue if you have stuff that you just off the top of your head you want to send to me, or Eric or any of us, let us know. And then look forward to the local assistance center and us doing our best to keep businesses running. We've done a good job as a community to have low transmission. Our goal is not to stress out businesses where they have to make a choice between getting masks or paying employees. We want to make sure that we do things safely going forward so that we can continue to stay in this category or tier, or even improve to yellow, where we can continue to open up more of our businesses. So if any questions or concerns or comments, please contact me at my email, or you can call me if you look on the website, the Health and Human Services website. My phone number's on there. Contact me at any time. I'll be happy to help. And with that, I will shift it over to Kim for any updates.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm just going to go over a general overview of what's changed in the guidance. We are currently in the orange tier, which is a moderate, considered moderate. So that is allowed for indoor dining to start and for bars to open. So the biggest change is the indoor dining can run at 50% capacity, while they still recommend takeout, curbside, and if you can, any delivery, that to reduce the numbers, and the outdoor dining. Bars that are not serving food can open outdoor only with some modifications following the COVID guidelines. And then wineries can open indoor operations with a 25% capacity. All of the other things, many of you have been already currently open with takeout and the outdoor dining. So all of the COVID guidelines that you currently are following, the wearing the mask and social distancing, new restaurant layouts, a COVID plan for if you do have a case at your business, all of those are still in place. Anything that you have specific questions about, and Carrie and Dave, if you want at any time to jump in, feel free to jump in. If you have any specific questions, one of the biggest things I think is the required use of face coverings for your staff, especially in the restaurant industry. I know that it's a bit difficult while working in the back house to work with a mask on, but it is a requirement. Any food prep area and any person that interacts with the public, or any employees that are interacting with each other. So that's basically everybody in the restaurant or a bar or winery operation will have to be wearing a mask. Some other things is outdoor music or music at the restaurants and bars is still not permitted at this time. If you're able to sell alcohol, you can still continue to do that outdoors, and you can still, if you already were able to sell for takeaway, that's still an option. And then other than that, everything else is basically the same as how you've been operating with both the takeout and the outdoor operations. So we can open it up to any questions if people have them.
I do have a question for you. And this came up at the board meeting, or at least, you know, I raised the issue. When it comes to the kitchen, and we've got Savory's restaurant, it's virtually impossible for people working over 10 top burners, ovens, and charbroilers to wear a mask over that kind of heat. It really is a health hazard in and of itself for them. It's almost intolerable. And they're working in the back of the house, isolated from the general public. What's your comment on that? How do we deal with that?
If the face covering is too difficult, there's always a face shield option that might be a bit more comfortable, just because it's less compressed to your face, that maybe the staff would be able to do. But unfortunately, the mask or the face covering requirement is for all the food prep areas as well. And that's just to slow down the transmission if you do have somebody that might be COVID positive there. So
I guess I just want to make the comment that, you know, face shields aside, how they would work in the kitchen, I don't know, but this is a real issue in the kitchen. There's a lot of heat involved, and be it a mask or a face shield, yeah, I've got my doubts. I'm very concerned, and I don't want to see an employee start to have respiratory or other problems, or problems with a thin plastic face shield over a lot of heat. I don't know how that's going to work out, frankly.
Hey, Jim, this is Joe. So, you know, we heard your comments on Tuesday. I will talk to Dr. Eric and make sure that we go through the public health officers and see the medical concern. I think when we talked about the guidelines, these aren't Mariposa ones. They're obviously the state of California created them in this way. We as a county can ask them to review that stuff, and we will. What I will do is I will actually have, whatever time you're open, you can give us a call, but I will have one of my team drop a case of face shields off at your business. Whatever day you'd like. If you'd like them today, I'll have them dropped off today, and you guys can give them a try and see if they're any better. What I don't want to do is to have us have them look at us not being in compliance because we haven't tried this stuff. So I will send you a case. You can give them a try, and if they're still not working, let's have real dialogue with Dr. Eric and the public health officers about your concerns.
Yeah, I think that needs to be talked about, and just to be aware, which you probably are, you know, Cal OSHA came out very recently, in fact, more than once this summer, obviously, about concerns for employees with regard to heat. Obviously, they're talking about triple-digit temperatures outside, but such heat concerns obviously also apply to the kitchen. That would be my comment. So there may be a little contradiction there between Cal OSHA standards and heat and masks and face shields in the kitchen. And I just bring that up as an observation.
Oh yeah, no, when you talked on Tuesday, I noted all of the things that you said so that we could represent or look into. But okay, I will drop off face shields for you. They do allow for more air. They're not as stifling, but again, you have grease and heat. I don't know if the shielding will fog up or any of that stuff. So we'll drop some off to try, I guess, if you're okay.
Yeah, we'll give it a shot.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, there's some questions in the chat box.
We will drop some off at Costa Libos as well.
Does food still have to be served with alcohol in a restaurant setting per ABC regulation, or has that changed with the bars reopening? In the restaurants for the indoor dining and the outdoor, yes, the food still has to be served. For the bars operating only outdoors, they do not have to serve food with the meals. But bar areas and restaurants should remain closed.
Just one request, Joe. if you do drop off some face shields, since we're a dinner house, people don't start coming in to prep until about 3 o'clock. If that's dropped off, if it could be done at our back side door, after between 3 and 5. I hate to be picky, but no one's going to be there to open a door to get them otherwise.
No worries. Between
Okay.
3 and 5.
Yeah, thank you.
Kim, if you have a different time, let us know. We have, thankfully, we're not so far away. It's about a 2-minute drive, so we can bring them over in any point. So between 3 and 5, back door, and then we're good. We can do that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Does anybody have any additional questions? Also in the chat box, there's links to the guidance, and you can always feel free after you've had a chance to review it to give us a call at the Mariposa County COVID information line, and that phone number is 259-1332, or you could always email us as well, mariposacovid19@gmail.com. We can answer any specific questions.
Hi, it's Chris. This is not a question. I mean, we're just guessing at what 25% is. So if I'm allowed 25% at one time, I'm assuming. So when we were allowed to open before, if someone came by and there were 4, we chose the number 6 people at one time plus one of us, which seemed a reasonable number. We just would ask them to go shopping or come back in 15, 20 minutes. And everybody was really understanding of that. So I don't know, is 6 the right number? Is 4 people? I mean, do we go by square footage? I mean, I know this isn't a, critical science, but
yeah.
6 still be okay? Would that be 20? I don't know.
I'll probably Dave jump in a little bit, but the idea around the capacity is to be able to provide social distancing in a way. So I think that based upon your business, being able to provide those customers all the 6 feet of distance. And if you go off of your maximum occupancy for that building or space and then divide it down. But Terry or Dave, do you have better?
I was going to say, I'll talk to the planning department to see if they have a list. Typically, for a certificate of occupancy, it'll tell you what the maximum occupancy is part of the certificate of occupancy. So at some point, someone determined whenever the business opened what they thought the maximum capacity was. Let me see if I can find that info, if planning has that or building has that in kind of a spreadsheet or not. I'll let you know, but usually by business, it would have been whenever that business was deemed open, there was an occupancy limit, and it would be 25% of that as a guide, the general guideline. But again, to Kim's point, really the goal of the 25% is social distancing. So that's more of the key to it. But I'll see what I can do to find that info.
So I think this weekend we'll use the number 6 and still see how that goes. But people are understanding. So anyway, it gets people in other stores while they're waiting. So it's kind of a win for everybody. All right.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Joe, I'll be happy to take that on and work with Miriam.
Thank you, Dave. That'd be great.
It's Chris.
Chris at Miriam's, right? Or it used to be Miriam's. Sorry. Wrong person.
It's
Casto at Casto's.
Casto Oaks Wine, right there on the corner of 5th and it's a building that's multi-tenants. We're the corner tenant.
Yeah, I would think that, Dave, if you could just work with planning or building and see if they just have a list, or if we could just start to compile, that'd be great. If there's people that need it, send a note to Dave and we'll see if we can't look it up for you.
Any other questions?
And I would tell you all, thank you for your time today. This was recorded, so I know you have business partners that were not able to be on today. If you share that with them, I talked to some of the businesses about watching the video or the recording. But again, if you have any questions, you can either email the Mariposa COVID, call the COVID line, or email any one of us, and we're we're happy to help. So hopefully, since Tuesday, what you'll see hopefully is a dramatic increase in communication on all mediums, not just social media, but email and any other way we can. We heard you loud and clear. We want to be respectful of your businesses, but assist as much as we can. If there's any gaps that you see, please let us know. I don't want it to be a gap that grows to where it becomes a frustration. What you will get from, especially Eric and myself and our agencies, is we're going to let you know what's up, the truth of what we have. So if you ask the question, you will get the answer. But please reach out. We're here to help. So with that, you guys hopefully have a prosperous weekend and have a great day. And if you have any questions, let us know. Thank you.
Stay safe. Happy Labor Day.
Happy Labor Day. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.